Mbappe wants Real Madrid clause, Rudiger open to Barcelona move, there's more injury worries for Liverpool, a transfer roundup, and today's Emoji Mondays all coming up in the next few minutes as I'm your host Matt Froelich, you are the One Footballers, and this is the Daily News. So first off, we've spoken about it a lot recently, and Kylian Mbappe could be leaving PSG, but apparently he's really keen to make sure it's to Real Madrid. Now the club are hoping to extend his contract for the next few years because it runs out in the summer of 2022. It might not be necessarily about keeping Mbappe at the club for that long, it's just to make sure that when he wants to leave and when a big club comes in for him, they can get a fair amount of money for someone who, let's be honest, is going to go on to win Ballon d'Ors and set records for the rest of his career. One of these teams is Real Madrid. Apparently Mbappe said he'll sign a new contract with PSG on the promise that there's a clause in there which would see them accept an offer from one of the biggest clubs in the world. The issue with this is that PSG can set the clause. So at the moment, if Real Madrid were to come in, I don't know, maybe 180 to 200 million would do it for Mbappe. I know that may be a little bit less than what you're expecting, especially as Mbappe will probably go for more than Neymar did those few summers ago to PSG. But as I mentioned before, if PSG are going to put a clause in, they're going to raise it higher. They're going to do whatever suits them best. If they're losing Mbappe, they might as well go for broke and put in like a 250 whatever clause in there. Like, it's going to be something insane, and you just know if there's one team who will put aside the money, save up a bit, do this, that, and the other, move some dodgy amounts of money about, it's going to be Real Madrid who are going to end up paying an extraordinary amount of money for the French striker. Having said that, I kind of think it'll be worth it. Like I mentioned before about going on to be a success, if you're going to buy someone who's going to be a success in your team for the next decade at least, it might as well be Kylian Mbappe, let's face it. Interestingly enough though, and it kind of leads on into our next story, and former Barca president Javier Bordas said that they had the chance to sign Mbappe a few years ago, but went with Ousmane Dembele instead. And on top of this, they also had the chance to sign Erling Haaland, but instead decided to bring in Kevin Prince Boateng on loan. That is just an insight into what on earth has been going on at Barcelona recently, and the transfer news does not stop there. And that's because they need to make a few signings. One of them could be Antonio Rudiger. Now the German centre-back has been left out of the cold by Frank Lampard, with the likes of new signing Thiago Silva, Fikayo Tomori, and of course Kurt Zouma having a rather good start to the season for Chelsea. So Rudiger would be open to a move to Barcelona because it's going to help him ahead of Germany's Euro 2021 campaign. Honestly, this kind of fits for all parties. Lampard doesn't have to deal with a player who's unhappy at the club. Rudiger gets a move to, in all honesty, a bigger club than Chelsea at Barcelona, even though they may not have as much success as Chelsea this season. And on top of all this, Barcelona then get a good defender who fills in a few worrying positions for the defensive line. All of this makes sense. There's no reason why it won't happen. Anyway, on top of all of this, Germany also make sure that one of their defenders gets some good playing time, as we mentioned, before they head into the Euros next summer. It's a win-win situation, and finally, Barca could be doing a good bit of business. Having said that, there was also reports over the weekend that the likes of Carlos Alenya and Ricky Puig could be leaving the club, but only on a loan basis, because Ronald Koeman thinks that they're pretty stacked in midfield at the moment, but the two youngsters do have a bright future at the new camp. Next up then, and to Liverpool. Sorry Liverpool fans, things are getting a lot worse. Now, someone actually reminded me of this the other day, that I said it must have been last year, or certainly the beginning of this year, saying that it'd be interesting to see how Liverpool cope with so many injuries, because I feel like their first team, the starting 11, is probably the best in the world, up there with the best in the world. But their squad, the guys they've gotten to replace, not so much. They were so incredibly consistent during the last two seasons, the Champions League victory and of course the Premier League title last season. But it would just be rather interesting to see how they do with one or two injuries like many other clubs in the Premier League were getting. This though is taking it a bit too far. They are screwed. They are not looking in good shape ahead of the Leicester game the following weekend. So we already know about Van Dijk out for the season. Joe Gomez looks like he's facing a long spell out as well, could potentially be out for the whole campaign too. Recently, Mohamed Salah has tested positive for coronavirus. Trent Alexander-Arnold pulled out the England squad with a calf strain. Andy Robertson is now struggling with a hamstring injury from international duty with Scotland. And last night, to top it all off, captain Jordan Henderson came off at half-time in England's defeat to Belgium, complaining of a bit of a tight leg. This is a real worry for Liverpool. Like, yeah, you can kind of replace one player here and there and cover up the gaps, but this is ridiculous. This is like more than half the team. Unfortunately, we're going to see how not only Liverpool, but how a lot of teams deal with the situation this year, because things are only going to get worse when it comes to a packed schedule, coronavirus still about, and of course so many injuries as the bodies are being overworked. I'm going to get onto this topic a little bit later in the week, but yeah, Liverpool fans, you may want to look away for the next few weeks at least. Next up then, a quick roundup of the rest of the day's transfer news and other news that you might have missed. And former Barcelona Liverpool legend Javier Mascherano has finally called quits and retired on his career. Next up, and Sadio Mane scored the goal which saw Senegal into the African Cup of Nations finals. However, they have been postponed by a year and will now take place in January 2022. Hakan Çalhanoğlu is close to leaving AC Milan and could be moving to Atletico Madrid in the January transfer window. And lastly but not least, Manchester City are looking for a new striker next year. They've got quite a few targets on the list. We're not quite sure who they are just yet. Having said that, I made a video which you can find right here detailing the 5 potential replacements for Sergio Aguero up front for Manchester City. But before you check that out, let's move on to Friday Feels. This is where you guys left your footballing predictions in the comment section of Friday's Daily, and a few of you got things right. Alistair Hood guessed that Belgium would win 2-0 over England. Adib Abrar guessed that would be a 1-1 draw between Spain and Switzerland. And Lilan said that Ronaldo will not score, which he did not, as Portugal lost 1-0 at home to France. Lastly then, we come to Emoji Mondays. This is where we at One Football throw a couple of emojis down on some of the weekend's hottest action. And first off, best player, Gini Wijnaldum. He captained the Netherlands instead of Virgil van Dijk, his teammate, who, as we mentioned, is out for the season, scored 2 goals and just generally had a fantastic game as they won 3-1. Next up, and the craziest moment, Sergio Ramos. It was his day. It was his game against Switzerland. He became the joint highest appearance maker at international level along with Gigi Buffon, and he ruined his own day by missing 2 penalties. Oh, and the second one he tried to Panenka it, and it was a nightmare. And yes, before you guys jump my back and say, oh Matt, you aren't annoyed at him because he messed up a crap penalty, I am. It's terrible for him. Like, that was a stupid penalty. Just do it normally and you'll have more chance of scoring. That's a topic for another time, and that was a pretty crazy moment. But the best result of the weekend goes to France. They booked their place at the semi-finals of the UEFA Nations League with a brilliant 1-0 victory in Portugal against Cristiano Ronaldo and João Felix, and a pretty good Portuguese side who haven't lost at home competitively in quite a few years. So massive props to them and a big performance from N'Golo Kante. That's all from me though. Make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and of course your Emoji Mondays. Check out the other stuff we got going on OneFootball on screen now, and until next time, I will see you guys later.